Hello everybody. So since the last time we talked about this timber frame carport, I've gotten a little bit more done on the roof. I've gotten the rear gable framing put on, and that's really duplicate of what I did on the front in that last video. And then I started putting up my ridge board, and I'm going with a non-structural ridge board in this case, and that's a 1x10 piece of pine. And the interesting thing about a non-structural ridge, it really just has to be strong enough to hold up the rafters as you tack them into place. After that point, it's almost inconsequential to the structure of the roof. And so it's really mainly used as an aid when putting up the roof rafters, and especially if you're working by yourself, having that board up there is real helpful. So I've got the two end sections on. Those are about 5.5 feet long each. I'm getting ready to put up this middle section. To prop this up, I really just added a couple simple 2x posts on top of some of my cross ties. And again, those aren't going to carry any load either. They're just there to hold up that non-structural ridge board. One thing I wanted to point out I do ahead of time is I mark out the locations of where my rafters are going to go, and that's really easy to do when you have this board down on some sawhorses or on a workbench. It's hard to do when that's already up in the air. Every once in a while I forget to make those marks on the board ahead of time and have to do it up there on a ladder, and boy, it's a pain then. So whenever you do this, even with a structural ridge, just remember to put your mark your locations for where the rafters are going to tack on. So I'm going to put that up in a minute. One other thing I wanted to talk about though was this tradition. This is known as a wedding tree, and wedding as in W-E-T-T-I-N-G, and this is often tacked onto the ridge of structures as the frame goes together. And this is supposed to pay homage to all the trees that went into building the structure, and also kind of symbolize the structure putting down roots, and it's supposed to be a sign of good luck and kind of a tradition. This is actually the first time that the little evergreen bough that I nail up there came from the same tree that was used for the lumber on this project. And that's the very top of a 75-foot tall loblolly pine tree that I felled about 3-4 days ago to cut all of the roof rafters and probably some of the roof purlins as well. I've got a lot of lumber out of that tree, and I've still got 2 or 3 10-foot logs that I haven't cut into yet. So that may be the last tree I have to fell for this project. If not, it's going to be very close. And so I thought that was cool that the wedding tree in this case is actually, or the wedding bush, it's coming from the same tree that was used for a lot of the lumber of the roof line. So I'm going to put this camera down, set it up, and get that last ridge board into place, and you guys can watch. Okay, so that completes the non-structural ridge line. You might remember one of the earlier videos when I was talking about squaring up the structure and setting the posts, I talked about how important that was because it would make everything else that followed easier to work with. And that's really the case up here. When I was putting those ridge boards together, I pulled those board measurements off of my drawings. I didn't have to go measure the structure or worry if things were deviating from what I planned, or have to adjust the dimension on one of the boards to get it to fit. I cut all 3 of those ridge boards to their design lengths, and they fit just really nice and snug. It's satisfying to see wood come together and fit so nicely. So the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a string along the top of that ridge and sight down it from one end before I finish screwing in those 2 middle posts right there. They're located where they should be on center, but that's one last dimension and one last thing I can check and get just perfectly before I tie those guys down permanently. And that's worth double checking, because if your ridge is a little bit crooked, if you're using one board and it's straight, no big deal. But I'm using 3 boards with 2 joints, and if things were just a teeny little bit crooked, that could really throw off the rafters. So I'm going to do that next. Tomorrow I'm hoping to do another video where I actually start throwing up some rafters. Until then, thanks for watching and have a good day.